Well, before I begin, I have to correct my dear friend Garda because I am currently not practicing. I have been defrocked by a cruel government who has come to me in my greatest years of triumph as a lawyer and as a person, I think, and pointed a bony finger and said, because of what you did to help your client, we are charging you with aiding terrorism. And this happened back in 2002. I did not really intend to talk at all about this, but I think given Garda's glowing introduction, I have to say that in 2002, 6 months after 9/11, John Ashcroft came to New York. And he came to New York to announce the indictment of the lawyer. He didn't have much else to show for his Patriot Act, and he stayed that evening to go on the Letterman show, to pound his own chest and to say how they were doing such great fighting work against terrorism. If you come to the Civil Rights workshop tomorrow afternoon, or I guess it's on Saturday, I take that back, you'll hear more about this and more about the great work they're doing, which is nil, actually, and how they've exploited the law to do it. But notwithstanding, I guess I surprised the General Ashcroft because I didn't just say, oh my God, I'm going to lose my profession, and let me get into and let me do something. I met the press and I stood up. And I've been standing up for 6 years. And I intend to continue standing up until we win this thing. It is such an affront to the legal profession. It is such an affront to everyone who has ever been a defendant, to anyone who loves the Constitution, who can say that even though we're declaring our independence of this government, some parts of that Constitution are pretty darn good. So I am here to say that this fight will go on as long as I draw breath from behind prison bars, if it must be, but I will never give it up. And on behalf of all the clients that I was privileged to serve, because I always felt that being a lawyer was a real privilege, was a chance to make the system work. I say that on their behalf, too. This fight is not going to end until it's ended. It ain't over till it's over, as someone said in New York once upon a time. So let me talk to you, though, about this conference. You know, in thinking about the conference, I thought to myself, you know, I've been speaking out now for over 6 years. Blessings on you. About all manner of civil rights and civil wrongs, about the war, about everything that confronts us day after day. And I turned to Ralph, my husband, who's sitting over here in the front row, and I said, you know, it's just like the alarm clock keeps going off. We hear that alarm ringing in our ears, but we can't find the button. We can't find the lever. We can't turn it off. For some reason, it's just alarming and alarming and alarming. We can't pick up a newspaper. We can't listen to a radio show. We can't turn on Amy Goodman without hearing that alarm in our ears and knowing that to date we have been unable to rise, to fight, to get the people to fight what is so alarming. Even Bill Moyers in his latest book said, and I say even because he's not considered an extremely radical person, but even Bill Moyers said, you know, that democracy sometimes gets over by sheer luck alone. It survives by luck alone. And I feel that we've been lucky these last years, that it hasn't gotten worse and worse. As Gary said, the smirking in the White House. But what to do? What to do? How can we turn this alarm off? I'm not going to give a lecture, because I don't have that answer. So no note-taking, please. But I really want to inspire you tonight. I want to instigate here. I want to make people leave this conference with new ideas, with new connections. You know, we're probably the most connected people by email, by internet, by telephone, if we remember those things. But yet it's getting together like this, face to face. Being together and talking to someone who's actually done something with uranium depletion, with someone who's playing the oldest music heard on this continent. This is what turns us on. This is what makes us go out there and fight the good fight. Not here to give a lecture. As I say, I'm here to inspire. And basically in my earlier life, I was a children's librarian in Harlem. And, you know, I'm still happiest when I'm the storyteller. To some degree, you know, when I would sum up to a jury in a case, I would feel as if I was telling stories to the 6th grade or the 3rd grade, having to gather them up. But I'm still happiest when, on a summer evening, I gather together my children, now my grandchildren, and pull them all together and tell them the old, powerful, ancient tales. And, you know, as I'm telling the stories or reading the stories to them, the adults seem to drift into the room. They leave the porch. They turn down the radio. Everyone listens, because these stories are immutable. These stories are in our fiber, every human being on this earth. Jack defeats the giant with his wits. Molly Whuppie, she crossed a bridge of one hair to defeat the giant in her story. The 2 children, Hansel and Gretel, who turned the tables and pushed the evil witch into the oven. An African tale of a baby who is born, and his 12 brothers, he says to them, "But where is my father?" And because of that one simple question, which is posited to these dozen, they go back until they find what had happened to the father in the jungle. All of these stories, though, are about fighting back, about resisting. They're all about not ever accepting defeat, not ever saying, well, the status quo is good enough for me. I've got my remote. I've got my SUV in the driveway. It's about resisting. This is our human heritage. And sometimes we do tilt at windmills. We get out there and boy, we're just swept up or swept down into the mud. But always, 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 when the dragon is out there, we have to step up. And I say to you, the dragon is out there now. Our society has gone from being what I would call, with all its flaws and faults, and Lord knows it had them in the 40s, 50s, and then the glorious 60s. With all of that, it has gone to being a devouring beast. It has gone to being the single engine for evil on the face of the earth. I don't think anybody in this room in 1970 would have thought that we would become the torturers, that we would have offshore islands where we take our enemies and we torture them. And why do we torture them? Because we can. We're not torturing them to get information. That is the total myth. That's what makes this so evil. Do we really? We know better. All the psychiatrists tell us that information given under duress is not truthful. Information given as a result of suggestiveness is not worth anything. So why do we torture? Because it makes a statement. It's a power statement. It's the same thing as the bully in the schoolyard. I hope the business about fighting the dragon didn't offend any of the animal rights people in here. And I just say these terms are really used as metaphors because we really are the warriors. We really are. We're blessed with some enlightenment. We see the ugly patterns. The more we learn, the more we want to learn. We're placed on this earth at this time to change it, to not allow it to be the same for our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. I can go into all these items. You just have to look down the list of the workshops. You don't need them itemized by me. We all know what the problems are. Everything, the economic problems, but we do have a few bright lights, don't we? We have Burlington, Vermont, a little ex-industrial town, now sort of a trendy place, that voted through its city, first through its city council and then later by ballot referendum, to arrest Bush and Cheney should they ever set foot in the place. We have a group of young people up in Maine who sat in the senator's office just because they were so fed up with the lack of response of our so-called elected officials above the people, and were arrested and were acquitted by a jury last week, not guilty. But we are gathered here because of the traditions. Ancient and modern affirm that strength and power are doubled and tripled when there is a collective will. We have all seen that, or I don't think we would be here tonight. We have all been part of something, somewhere, whether it was a mass demonstration on the lawns of the Capitol, whether it was a school board meeting where we got arrested, Ralph. At any rate, we all know that the collective will triples and doubles way outside of what it would normally be, because more than one person, you know the old saying, some of them are true, 2 heads are better than 1, well 3 are better than 2, and 4 are better than 3. And part of what we're doing here this weekend, this Memorial Day weekend, is to brainstorm, to bring our collective knowledge together, to pick each other's brains, as we say, to hear what other people are doing in other parts of this world. And this is our task. The enemy we face is most formidable, not unlike ancient days. And what to do if all we come is to wring our hands and cry, woe is us, if all we come is just to talk to each other and have a good time of like minds and say, well, we're doing all we can, times are tough, you can't talk to the people, we can't organize, then let's just forget all these workshops. And let's just hang out and enjoy the beautiful spring sunshine in this beautiful place. But I know we don't want to do that, because we all wake up in the morning, and in the morning we look out and the alarm clock does go off. And it goes off not only next to the bed, but metaphorically in our brains. And we say, we've got to do something. We've got to do something, because we risk otherwise not doing anything and waking up one morning or finding out there's nothing left to be done. We all can't hear that alarm clock. There are many Americans that peacefully slumber on. They never hear the alarm. But it tolls for thee. It tolls for all of us. All of us are implicated in this. And I say to you, you know, we don't really try hard enough, I don't think, to talk to everyday folks. You know, we go to work in the morning, or we're sitting on the subway holding our Peace Now or whatever placard of the day it might be, and people look curiously, they're shy, they don't want to come over and say, what does that mean? But they're interested, and I challenge everyone here, talk to people. That's what we're about. We're the people believers. That's what this is about. We the people. If we talk to people, if we get them to realize that their future, their life is at stake here, and the men who have spoken tonight that went to Iraq. If you listen to any of the Winter Soldier testimony, you know what a terrible, terrible chore we set for them. It was not only the risk of their own lives, it was the deterioration of all the things that some of these men knew to be right, knew to care about. And this is what we are eating our own children. And this has absolutely got to stop. So, what are we going to do? Well, I have some suggestions. These are some of the things I put in my words. I think all of us who got up here tonight wanted to speak about what's closest to their own hearts. So I say to you that our quests, we are out here to shake the foundations of the continents, and I'm glad to hear that Dennis Kucinich is going to disband the IMF. We'll talk about shaking continents. All one ever had to do was read about the IMF in the Congo or in Haiti or in any other country you can name, and you know the power of this capitalist bank to draw in and spend the millions that the people do not have. But at any rate, I'd just like to tell you, this is my Lynn Stewart wish list. We want to shake the very foundations of the continents. We go out to stop police brutality, extrajudicial killings, to rescue the imprisoned, the political prisoners, Leonard Pelletier, Native American, wrongfully convicted. All the evidence says he's not guilty of the crimes with which he's been sitting in prison for 30 years. Last week I sat in front of my email and I wept because some priest had written the most eloquent poem about taking Leonard down from the cross after 30 years, that he's been up there pilloried and pinioned and never taken down. And he is someone, and I could name 30 others if you want me to, from the black liberation struggles of the 60s and 70s, from the Puerto Rican struggles. These folks are sitting in jail. They have little or no hope of ever getting out because the way it is positioned, their voices cannot ever be heard. We must become their voice. I want to change the rules for those who have never even been able to get to the starting line, much less run the race, because of color, physical condition, gender, mental impairment. We need to get out there to preserve the air and land and water and sky and all the beasts that crawl and fly. We go forth to safeguard the right to speak and write, to join, to learn, to rest safe at home, to be secure, fed, healthy, sheltered, loved, and loving, to be at peace with one's identity. We have in Washington a poisonous government that spreads its venom to the body politic in all corners of the globe. We have big war in Iraq, we have big war in Afghanistan, we have smaller wars in Colombia, Central Africa, Southeast Asia. We have detainees and political prisoners at home and torture abroad. We have those Democratic and Republican conventions now coming up. And then an election, which I suggest to you will be hyped by the corporate media and drown out righteous protest. I don't think we can hope for change through the democratic process. And that is why the work on the Declaration of Independence that you found, and you must admit, it's not every conference you go to that you get a Declaration of Independence in the tote bag when you get there. It makes a statement, and it makes a powerful statement to all of us about thinking about where we are right now, putting ourselves in the shoes of the fellows that threw the tea off the boats in Boston Harbor. When we leave here, Ralph and I are going to make a pilgrimage we have long wanted to make, and that is to Harper's Ferry, to see where John Brown confronted a nation. And you know, people, I never was as mad with my education, and I had a good education, New York City schools, and I never was as angry as when I found out that John Brown was not a raving lunatic, that John Brown was not a madman who had no idea of what he was doing, but that he was a very, very considered man, that he had a plan, that his plan might have worked except for the fact that he had allies that could not be trusted. I was never as angry as when I found out that John Brown was someone we should all look to. And people now shy away. Oops, violence, that ugly word. Oh, we can't talk about violence. But I tell you, if we eschew violence, if we say we can't do anything that's violent, we have given away a tremendous weapon. Because, you know, I talked about telling stories. I talked about people fighting the great powers with their wits and brains. But, you know, there's another thing, and of course, as a lawyer, it was one of my greatest favorites, and that is the right of self-defense. And when I talk about using violence, I talk about we have a right to defend ourselves. We do not have to go down that dark alley and say, well, whatever they do to me, they do to me. We are in a dark alley, folks. We are in a dark alley, and these guys are really ugly out there. So we have to do what we have to do to defend ourselves. And that is one of the most time-honored things in law. It is one of the most time-honored things in all of our history, is to be able to defend oneself when one's life or the life of another is threatened. So we're going to go up to see where John Brown was captured, but where he saved a nation, because he made the Civil War happen. He freed the slaves in a way that nobody else did. And I'd ask you to also remember his words. As he mounted the scaffold, I think he said, if I had done what I did on behalf of the rich and powerful, I would be receiving praise and medals. That I did it on behalf of black slaves and on behalf of totally powerless people is why I am climbing these gallows steps. Now that's someone, live like him, as we used to say in the 60s, live like him. But I say to you, we are here with a marvelous opportunity for learning from each other. I certainly intend to mix, mingle, find out. You know, the conferences, the workshops are scheduled so that if you want to, you can go to every single one of them. They're not like a lot of conferences where they are overlapping each other. Am I right? They're staggered, except for some papers and things, I guess. But anyway, we should go to as much as we can, because it really is the chance to really get out there, broaden our bases, set ourselves up to be able to go out and fight the good fight, which is out there to be fought and which requires us to do so. And I'm going to just close because I too love poetry, and I can't let is it Michael? No. Gary. Sure. Do all those. I mean, he did Langston Hughes, but I'll do Arundhati Roy, if I may. And she said, our strategy should be not only to confront empire, but to lay siege to it, to deprive it of oxygen, to shame it, to mock it with our art, our music, our literature, our stubbornness, our joy, our brilliance, our sheer relentlessness, and our ability to tell our own stories. Stories that are different from the ones we're being brainwashed to believe. The corporate revolution will collapse if we refuse to buy what they are selling. their ideas, their version of history, their wars, their weapons, their notion of inevitability. But remember this, we be many, and they be few. Another world is not only possible, she is on her way. On some days, on a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. Thank you.
We do have some corrections to the conference schedule. I'll just go through them very quickly. Now, there is a sheet of these corrections as you leave the auditorium. Out in the vestibule, they're sitting on a chair. Major panel sessions. The climate change and water crisis session will be taking place in Cook 107. Also a major panel session. The animal rights session will be taking place also in Cook 107, not concurrently. Workshops. Right, why not? Workshops. The International Trade, Development, and Sustainability in a Global Economy workshop will take place on Friday, 2 to 4 in Russell 347. The Law of Rent, Cause of Recessions workshop will take place on Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Note the new time in Russell 347. The International Trade and Development, Sustainability in a Global Economy workshop will take place on Saturday 4 p.m. to 6. Note the new time in Russell 349. And finally, the Why Cities Matter, War and Peace, and LVT, One Solution for Many Problems. Workshop will be taking place on Saturday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Note new time in Russell 350. Thank you for your patience. Wishing you a wonderful conference. Thank you.
Hello? Excuse me. Before you leave, we'd like to try something. We'd like to pass this microphone around, and those who will be leading panels and making presentations, would you please tell the group what you'll be doing, who you are, in a minute or less, and pass the microphone around. Thank you.
All right, who's first? Hey, how are you? Ralph Pointer, New York City, the Green Party, New Abolitionist Movement. We will be speaking of homelessness and how to defeat depression. 45 years in the struggle. I was the teacher across the hall when Miss Stewart was in Harlem, the librarian, and I was only too happy to educate her in terms of what a black America was going through and why, although she was born just 10 miles from Harlem. She's going to be my hook. This won't go on long. See you tomorrow.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Cohen. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. And I'll be taking part in a couple of workshops. The one on the the crisis, the global crisis in the environment. They're destroying not only people in Iraq, but they're also destroying the earth that we live in, as many people have alluded to. The elections that we have facing us between the Democrats and Republicans, it's like choosing between syphilis and gonorrhea. And we have, and what they're planning is which party can best manage the crisis that we're facing on behalf of the capitalist class in power. And we'll be talking about some of that. And the choice for us is a choice between the capitalist system and the immune system. And we damn well better be standing on the side of the immune system.
Bob and I, my name's Adele, Della Valley Roth, we'll be doing Haiti on Friday between 4 and 6. I've been doing Haiti, and I think you folks like you know what that means, for 30 years, since 1980. And I go every year, twice a year, I take groups down. Haiti is the most impoverished country in the Western Hemisphere. We prefer to call it that rather than the poorest country. They have been made poor. And so we have a DVD, and I'll let Bob speak for a moment.
The DVD is about what's going on in Haiti today, and it's only about 15 minutes long. But then we'd like to entertain questions from the audience at the workshop. But also we can give a presentation on some of the history of Haiti and why they are so poor today. It's very simple history and relates a lot to this country, the United States, who are really the oppressors in terms of that poor, poor country. So as you know, their democracy was destroyed in 2004. They took their president out of the country and sent him to Africa. He is still in South Africa, teaching at the University of South Africa, President Bertrand Aristide. And today, now, because of the elections in May of 2006, they have a new president, René Prout, who is a fairly good president, but his hands are tied. Yeah.
When Bob said they took him out, the U.S., France, and Canada kidnapped Aristide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.
Oh, here we go.
Thanks. I'm Lindy Davies, and I'm leading a panel of thinkers and reformers who are inspired by the great economist Henry George. And we want to explore from a number of different angles our fundamental economic and spiritual relationship with the earth itself. And we want to explore this on a number of different angles, both economically and philosophically, in terms of local reform, in terms of cities and why they matter, in terms of nations and international relationships. And we hope that we can we hope we can answer the question that Dr. Corsari asked of where we stand. So a number of workshops on Georgist ideas. I hope you can join us.
And I'm one of those workshops, and that'll be called The Law of Rent and the Basic Cause of Recessions, and it explores why wages don't increase with material progress, inventions, innovations, and so on, and how this land value tax could actually raise wages and prevent any unemployment.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Fareed Bitar. I'm going to discuss Palestine. I'm on the panel. I'm a panelist. My real name is Palestinian Soul. I've lived through 2 wars, up close and personal. I'm going to talk about the massacre of Sabra and Shatila, which my aunt was there. I'm also going to talk about Jerusalem, which peace never comes to, and amongst other things. But I'm also going to be handing down the microphone to Brent Laird.
Hello. No revolution can take place without its arts and entertainment. So Gary Corsari has been gracious enough to ask me, Brant Lyon, Farid Battar, and Miriam Stanley as the Fatouche Ensemble to provide part of the arts and entertainment for the banquets on Friday evening at 6 to 8, and then again on Saturday we'll be performing poetry and music, songs and spoken word about protesting the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, pleading for a solution and peace to come there, and issues having to do with all genocides, including the war in Iraq. So please do join us. Miriam would like to say something also.
Okay, I'm going to say as the Jewish member of the group that my poetry is mainly about the fact that the Jews and the Palestinians are relatives, and so just the whole idea of the sadness of the family fight, and my poems, my art, basically illustrate that.
Thank you. My name is Mazen Kumsiya, Palestinian American Christian family. I was a professor at Duke University and at Yale University. At Duke 6 years, at Yale 5 years, and then that ended because of my political activism, but that's another story. I'm an organizer with the Wheels of Justice bus tour, which goes around the country and brings eyewitness accounts to occupations in Iraq and Palestine. I'd like many of you to volunteer to be speakers on the bus. If you're interested, see me. Anyway, I will be keynoting the Palestine session, and I will be also doing a workshop on boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. My claim to fame is that I disrupted the World Economic Forum by having an article on boycott of Israel in their official magazine, by the way, which they subsequently banned and destroyed and burned, basically, and they no longer publish it, and they suspended the session for that. But anyway, I'll also be a panelist on some other sessions.
Thank you, dear Garda. Garda let me come here. Most people don't. I speak about depleted uranium. It's not depleted at all. It's been used, as far as I can tell, in 22 nations by the U.S. alone to radioactively contaminate the ground, the air, the water, the soil, the people. They've used, I've calculated, more depleted uranium inside the United States than they used in the first Gulf War, so they said, in Iraq. We are the most nuked nation, and I think that's the key. In order for them to stop it in Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, wherever they use it, we've got to first stop it here. We've got to let people know it's a problem here. It's 4 o'clock on Friday. If you can't be there, just Google my name, Kathy with a C, Garger, or you'll find it on the internet. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Livingston, and I'm giving a talk, actually a workshop. I wish I had put the word workshop in my title, because I don't want anyone to think that they're coming to Cook 311 at 2 o'clock tomorrow to hear a paper presented. That's not what's happening. What I'm trying to do, it's called Language at the Heart of Social Change, and I hope to show you how we can use Marshall Rosenberg's model of nonviolent communication to find the power that we need to create social change, no matter what they're doing in Washington. Thank you. Hope to see you there.
Good evening. My name is Eugenia Almond. I'll be on the panel for Civil Democratic Earth Federation on Saturday at 4 o'clock. I've been with, I started working for World Federation and Provisional World Parliament in 1984. We'll be talking, in my part of the presentation, I will speak somewhat about the integration and transformation of international law into enforceable world law under a Constitution for the Federation of Earth. Which is a non-military constitution in which the people are encouraged to participate in the processes of governing ourselves in the world. We demand self-government on a planetary level. Thank you very much. I hope you'll be there 4 o'clock on Saturday.
My name is Gary Crane. Couple questions. How many of you think we need smarter ways to talk to strangers, to organize, to build the movement? As Lynn said that politics is really talking to strangers. How many of you think we need to have more fun ways to talk to strangers, to involve, to build the movement? All right, well, then you'll want to come to my workshop on smarter, more fun ways to organize Saturday at 4. I'm a big fan of Web 2.0, so I'd like to tap the wisdom and creativity of people that are here now. So if you have any ideas that you've heard of or you'd like to see tried out, some wacky creative ideas for how to be more fun or how to be smarter in organizing, email them to me at funactivist@gmail.com, funactivist@gmail.com, and because we have wireless here, so I'll be looking at it throughout the day and tomorrow. And or you can call me and leave a message on my cell at 1-800-FAIRNESS, those of you who don't have your laptops with you, 1-800-FAIRNESS. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Donna Smith. I am helping do a number of things at the conference, and thanks to Garda. And my main function, I'm the keynote for the Right to Healthcare session that's taking place on Saturday morning. I also appeared in Michael Moore's movie Sicko, but that was not the beginnings of my fight for healthcare in this country. I'm going to participate in a panel later in that afternoon called Revolution, and I'm going to moderate the panel on homelessness and on dealing with economic depression issues. One of the things I want to tell all of you, and I in no way slight the losses we've had in the war in Iraq, but in the United States of America, we're fighting a war right here on this soil in the area of health care. 22,000 Americans lose their lives every year simply because they don't have access to adequate health care. We're not talking about people way distant from us. We're talking about our fellow citizens. And if we start the clock ticking the day we invaded Iraq the last time, we've lost more than 105,000 Americans on our soil because we have not made health care a human right in this nation. That's what I'm all about. That's what I want to see happen in this country. And that's what I'm hoping to fire you up a little bit more about with the session on Saturday and in the Revolution session later in the day. I also want to say just another word before I introduce a person who's very special to me, too. And this is totally a personal aside tonight, but for any of you who love an animal, my dog Shiner that I've had for all of her life is struggling to stay alive tonight. She's 13 years old, and she's a golden lab, golden retriever, who I found out was stricken after I left when I was on the plane to Roanoke from Chicago. So whatever being you believe in, say a few words for Shiner for me tonight. And this is my buddy and my friend, another hero. Her name is Reggie Cervantes, and I'll let her speak, but she's a 9/11 rescue worker who was also featured in Sicko.
First, I want to thank Garda for organizing this. It's an awesome event to participate. I'm looking forward to networking with all of you so that with each other's support, even if you don't reach the goal you're reaching for this week or next week, maybe by the end of the year we could sweep and reach most of the goals of the people in this room. I'm being hopeful and positive. I am a World Trade Center survivor. I went there as a rescue worker. I am in Michael Moore's movie Sicko. I have been to Guantanamo in March when it's 90-something degrees, and I know why they took them there. They took them there to suffer. I look forward to hopefully meeting a lot of you during your workshops, and I hope you come to ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerda, for inviting me here and for putting me on the stage with Maria Heller, who has a wonderful broadcast show with all of the hot issues of our times. reaching millions of viewers. You'll see her at the 9/11 Truth session at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We also have Jim Fetzer, who's the founder and leader of Scholars for 9/11 Truth. He's a wonderful person to invite to your community or to your university. He's a dynamic lecturer and author of dozens of books. I'm going to talk a little about my understanding of 9/11, not as a controlled demolition, which it was, not as a controlled demolition, but as a source of a flashbulb memory for most, if not all of us, which has conditioned us to fear. And that fear is awakened every time our bags are checked at the airport. You can imagine the public who has read less than we have, the fear that they have. Then I'm going to suggest, as a psychologist, how we can attempt to seek forgiveness for the collective crimes of our country and to recover from the collective trauma that we've experienced and inflicted on others. That's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Carl Gunther, and the reason I'm here is mainly because of all of you. We have such a diversity of movements here, and I'm studying what we have in common between all these movements. And if that's something that we have in common is the most powerful thing that we do, then how can we do more of it? How can we do it better? Garda asked me to participate in some of the panels, much to my surprise, because I'm not an expert in any of the content areas to which I've been assigned. But the reason is to provide the perspective, this abstract perspective of basically what is it that gives our movements integrity, what is it that gives communities integrity, and how can we fight against the control hierarchies that are attempting to suppress that integrity that cooperative and diverse movements can otherwise express. So it's very abstract, but I hope to contribute in that way.
My name is Kirk McGregor. I'll be speaking as a panelist on the Facing Fundamentalism session. I believe that violent models of Jesus' atonement lie at the center of fundamentalist forms of Christianity. Therefore, I'm going to be briefly sketching out a nonviolent model of the atonement based on some recent findings in historical Jesus studies.
I'm Pamela Ann Brough. I'm a theologian and anthropologist, as well as a mystic and an activist. And I'm going to be leading a workshop, pray shop on spiritual practices on the path to peace. And so it'll be very participatory. I figure we've got so much great left brain things going on here that I'll offer some right brain embodied kinds of breathing, meditation, movement, and explore some wonderful ways of restoring inner peace while we work for outer peace.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Turcott. I'm going to be talking about what I feel is when homelessness and the destruction of the environment are related, and how all of us can do something to remedy that. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Hello, everybody. I'm Danny Schechter, known as the News Dissector. I'm a blogger. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm a troublemaker. And, you know, I like you, have been part of a community and a community of resistance and struggle. Our truth goes marching on, Lynn. That's all true. On the other hand, I came to Radford University in hopes of connecting with young students in the South today, and I'm not sure how many of them are going to be with us in this conference. And I think while I believe in the head, I don't only believe in the gray head, even though I'm getting one. And I think we have to look at our strength, which is that our survival, our sustaining our vision and commitment over so many issues, over so many years. On the other hand, our weakness, our inability perhaps to reach out as well as we could or should to a new generation and to share our lessons and learn from them as well. And I think that's one of our challenges, not just to be a community for ourselves, but a community for change in America. I'm going to be showing part of my film, or my film, In Debt We Trust, which is about the debt crisis, the credit crisis that triggered the market meltdowns and is leading to has led to a global recession and perhaps something worse. And we have to understand economics and economic justice if we want to make change. And so I'm going to be on a panel on economic issues. I'm concerned about homelessness, not only the homelessness in the streets of New York where I live, but the fact that 3.5 million American families are facing foreclosure of their homes. Millions more who rent from these people, leading to a 50-state Katrina that is underway right now, to which the left has said very little and has had very little response to, the economic pain in our communities. I'm also talking about the great beast, the evil Satan in our lives, the media from which I have come and fled as a former CNN and ABC producer. And I want to talk about how the media has become a threat to democracy as opposed to a guardian of democracy. And I'm going to be talking about that because I think that no matter what your issue is, no matter what moves you, no matter what your passion is, media has to be your second, if not your first issue. If we can't get our voice heard in our communities and in our country, then we will be marginalized and we will self-marginalize ourselves. So our challenge is on all of these fronts, and I hope to talk with many of you. Thank you.